Hello, this is Trent. I am Bumi Obano. And as usual, I have on set with me Moses Omogeda. He's the online producer who is just always around. He's always around.
Right, just like you are.
So
we're getting tired of you already.
What's happening online, Moses?
A lot as usual. A lot of things has been trending, you know, from entertainment to sports to culture to politics, of course. And basically, South Africa and Nigeria seem to be making, you know, the headlines in weeks now. Now, let's start with South Africa. It's called the hashtag Platinum Strike, or the Marikana Strike, if you like. Now, it's been 16 weeks now since the strike, 4 months, where basically it's a protest where members of the Association of Mine Workers and Construction, AMCU, you know, they got to come out and, you know, they got tired of, in quote, low pay. Basically, they're asking for 12,500 rands increase as opposed to the 5,005 rands that they've been paid. In fact, when TVC...
Is that annually or?
Monthly. Monthly, yeah. You know, when TVC News got there and we got to speak to some of the mine workers, one said that he's been working since 1990 and he has nothing to show for it. You know, so basically they're asking for higher pay and for general improvement of, you know, the standard of living over there. So it's a national crisis in South Africa right now, and they're asking for a national intervention. And they're saying that until they get that, the strike will continue. But the big question is, how long is it going to continue? Because, you know, a lot of people are starving because that's only their source of income. 4 people, as a matter of fact, have committed suicide because of this. Okay. So it's really a national crisis that deserves a national intervention and solution.
And I think even still in South Africa, recently I saw on the news that the trade union is calling for the president's resignation. So there's a lot happening in the working class part of that country.
In fact, you know, that's a bunch of discussion for another time. But I just hope that, you know, the international community can get to come in, you know, and get to resolve this. Now, secondly, is something that has been on, you know, not just African media, but on global media, hashtag Bring Back Our Girls. You know, hashtag Bring Back Our Girls only gets to tell us that, you know, there is power in numbers and there is power in, you know, what I will call a unified, loud voice.
Not to talk about the platform, social media.
Exactly. You know, we've had over 500,000 tweets, 500,000 signatures on change.org alone, you know, in solidarity for the hashtag Bring Back Our Girls, where, you know, the whole world had to come together in solidarity of a small town called Chibok and Nigeria by extension. You know, before, you know, when these girls, with all the terror, when these girls were adopted, you know, the federal government was somewhat reluctant, and laid back in tackling this problem. But you know what? The world stood up and said, enough. Nigerians have had enough. You know, 60 young school boys were burnt in their sleep, you know, in Yobe, in a boarding school. 150,000 Christians were being killed in the middle belt of Nigeria. You know, there were no hashtags for that. But now this came up, and, you know, it was only a matter of time where this would just get out of hand. So the world had to stand up. Global media had to step in. And now there's been pressure on the federal government, and, you know, there's been some work, some international collaboration, which of course you'll be talking about in details. Yeah. You know, and we just got reports also that, you know, Jonathan, after, you know, weeks, has decided to make, a presidential visit to Chibok. So yes, that's basically what's it. And of course, don't forget, you can join the conversation by following us and sending your tweets at via Twitter at TVC Trends, and comment on our Facebook page and sending your pictures or your video comments at facebook.com/TVC Trends or via email at thetrends@tvcnews.tv. So, for me,
okay,
what do you have for us?
It has been more than a month now since the abduction of over 200 Chibok schoolgirls by the dreaded Islamic sect Boko Haram. Sadly, there's still no sign of them. The hashtag Bring Back Our Girls has now been tweeted more than 1 million times across the world as global outrage over the kidnap of these girls grow. Now, the President, Goodluck Jonathan, has accepted help from the international community, so United States, Britain, France, China, and Israel, who have all sent in or are expected to send in specially teams, to help in the search efforts. Earlier in the week, Abubakar Shekau, the leader of this extremist group, released a video showing the missing girls. Now, he alleged that some of them had converted to Islam and would not be released until all its prisoners held by Nigeria were freed. To respond to this, the government said no. So no to any negotiation that involves the swap of prisoners for the girls. Now, this raises several questions. What does this mean for the girls? Should the Nigerian government enter into talks with Boko Haram? And what efforts exactly have the international community put in place towards the rescue of these girls? Now, before we go straight into the discussion, let's have a look at this. We'll be right back.
This was the image the world got on Monday of the girls whose abduction caused global outrage and a spirited campaign to get them released. And the man who is behind the atrocity, Abubakar Shekau's infamy, continues to grow. It is a demand that has got immediate repudiation from the Nigerian government.
The government of Nigeria has no intention to pay ransom or to buy the girls, because the sale of human beings is a crime against humanity. The determination of government is to get the girls and to ensure that the impunity that has brought this about is checked and punished.
If anything, this new video showing more than 100 of the girls clothed in full-length Muslim outfit and praying at an undisclosed rural location has relieved the world that the children are still alive. The intrigue in the release of this video couldn't have grown any more disturbing. First, the governor of Borno State, where the incident happened, has only just claimed he had information on the whereabouts of the girls. Then, there is the accusation by some that there was never an abduction, but are designed to discredit the president. But whatever happened between when global anger and concern sprang on the abduction and the appearance of this video, the need to get these girls back home safely means action must be accelerated.
All we are saying, bring back our girls.
This is a historic.
Now, this video we just raised up quite a lot of things. We saw Robert Abati there talking about the stance of the government, and we saw international people coming, protesting and saying how they're coming together with Nigeria to demand for the release of these girls. And then we saw the video of the girls.
Yeah. There's been a lot of controversy that the girls in those videos were a mix-up of maybe the girls that have been abducted 2 years ago, which kind of gives us some hope. I mean, if the girls that have been abducted 2 years ago are still alive, then how much more the ones adopted 3 weeks ago? So, and one other thing I would want to say is that we heard what everybody is saying, that hashtag bring back our girls, but nobody seems to be thinking about the consequence of this. It's not just going to come on a platter of gold, I have to say, but I just hope that the federal government gets to fashion out something strategic where it's a win-win situation for everyone.
So even after the girls have been brought back, there are systems in place to help them come back into society and get over the trauma that
it's
you must have faced.
Tricky one,
it certainly is, certainly is. Now, joining us to discuss this issue today is Lanre Suraj. He's a security expert, and via Skype we have Mausi Segun. She's a researcher with the Human Rights Watch. Now, very glad to have both of you join us. I'll start with you, Lanre. Like I said in my introduction, it's been over a month now since these girls were taken. And we don't seem to have a clue as to where they are or how soon they would be brought back. What do you have to say about this? Why is this?
I think, thank you. My take on this is that it's interesting, and talking now as a Nigerian and as a concerned Nigeria, what is most crucial and made this to actually go viral the way you've seen it across the world is the replay of the tendency of this government to usually deny the obvious, and it was the attempt by both the government and then the supporters and spokesperson for government where they outrightly denied that there was any form of abduction in the face of the obvious, and that was what actually hacked the international world to say, oh no, this is unbelievable, we can see this. So if a government could come out and deny the obvious, then it becomes a concern for the whole world. And just like Emmanuel said, the interesting, Moses rather, you just said, the interesting bit is you've got kids that were kidnapped or abducted before now, shown in the video.
Even killed.
Until now, the federal government made no attempt to free those ones that were there before these ones. So including the 276. So the thing has been on, and then the federal government has been nonchalant about it. And that is why it's very difficult to take the government serious. You know, where today it is said that children would be free, and then tomorrow you're going to hear from friends, supporters, and also mouthpiece of the government saying there were actually no abduction. It is all about propaganda to give the government a bad name. Then you want to balance, where exactly are we? Is the government sincere about its efforts to even free the children? And you would want to say no. And when you say no to this challenge, 276 children, I mean, not minding those that were already there in captivity of this guy. So it gives us a whole hell of concern. And that is where we need to not alone say, no, this should not continue. It must be an end to the Boko Haram.
Okay.
And it is not only just going to be freeing the kids, it is also putting the government in its rightful position of protecting the lives and welfare of Nigerians, and not only the children.
It sounds like there's more to it that meets the eye.
Certainly.
Let's bring in Mausi into this. Mausi, I'm sure you must have seen that video, you know, of, you know, Shekau addressing, you know, the general public with the girls. Now, you know, as an expert on this, what exactly can you say about the girls, you know, from their body language, their facial expressions? What exactly can you say? What is your expertise, you know, report on the condition of those girls in the video?
I think that for us, it's way beyond just looking at the video that Boko Haram keeps releasing at intervals. We have been able to establish a pattern of abductions by Boko Haram since about the middle of May last year. So for about a year now, this has been occurring. It started off with Boko Haram claiming that it was in retaliation for the arrest and detention of the wives and children of members of Boko Haram. At that time, they were kidnapping the wives and children of policemen, of soldiers. They would take them away. And the pattern has been that after a while, either the women and the girls would return on their own, or they would be rescued during raids on Boko Haram camps by security forces with the assistance from the local vigilance groups in Borno State. And so, I mean, I have personally interviewed a number of girls who have returned. Some returned pregnant, some returned with babies. It has not been the pattern that they would kill them. And so seeing the countenance of the girls in that video is not surprising. They appear to be calm. But talking about all that they have gone through, this may not be the right time. But I think that it's given the security forces a lot of clues that they can work with in locating the girls, just looking at the background and looking at all that Shekau himself said and what the girls said.
Okay, I want to take something from what Mausi just talked about and address this to you, Lanre. She said, you know, looking at videos and all of the things that have been brought out already, we should have clues as to where these girls are.
Oh, no doubt about that. That is where many of us doubt usually the sincerity of the government in terms of fighting Boko Haram or genuinely rooting them out. As much as they claim to tell you, it's Sambisa Forest where they are. And they can enter Sambisa Forest. We've seen the video, even the initial one, where Shekau came out to own up and take ownership for the abduction. We saw the video and we couldn't see any forest behind him. What we could see behind him is a APC, an armored personnel carrier. Mind you, armored personnel carrier is not a motorbike that can be hidden within the bush. Any part where you see an APC move, even if you don't see the APC, you can trace the tracks of the APC. Yeah. So that is one. Where you can see the kids is in an open field where it is not, there are no even grasses you can see there. It's an open field, it's a barren land. So it is all about this, saying Sambisa Forest. So the people from outside that community can think is a thick forest that you can't even dare to enter. So basically, it is there for government to actually, and the challenge also is the fact that it has shown to us that corruption has even eaten down the fabrics of Nigeria beyond our imagination. In the last 5 years, there has been over 1.5 trillion naira allocated to Ministry of Defense in Nigeria. So with 1.5 trillion naira over 5 years, we don't have surveillance helicopters. We don't even have drone, which would have assisted in picking not an environment, not the circumference, but even points. And this money has gone down the drain. Where are the monies? What have we bought with them? The president and presidency could have even sacrificed one of the presidential fleets for an helicopter, a specialized one, to surveil that area if there's a sincere and genuine commitment towards rooting out Boko Haram. They are not operating from a dungeon or from a hole. It's an open field. It's obvious. But it's clearly telling us that we don't have a government that is ready to actually stop the attacks of Boko Haram.
Actually, well, Mausi, you mentioned that you've spoken to some of, the girls who have escaped or, I don't know, been rescued from Boko Haram. When they talk, do they tell you exactly how Boko Haram seems to have an upper hand on our military personnel or on military officers? How did around?
Well, those are not the kind of questions that we ask them, because these girls come back traumatized. They have a lot of psychological and health issues that need to be addressed. And some of the times that we got the opportunity to speak with them, they hadn't gone through all of this. And so we kept it down to the basics of what happened to them in person, and not about the tactics of who was having the upper hand or not. But you see, I think that what the Chibok incident has done for us, as unfortunate as it is, we see it as opening up a door of opportunity. For one, to address the issue, not just of abductions of girls, but of the attack on education, the killing of boys in the Buniyadi school. All the boys in that school were killed, and the girls were told to go home and get married. So it raises all kinds of human rights issues of early marriage, of lack of access to education for girls, and for the few boys that managed to get into school, having been scared of what was happening. And then looking at the Nigerian military, the security forces, the high-handed response that they have had, the indiscriminate manner that they have treated the people, the residents of the Northeast in responding to the insurgency, not discriminating between them or Boko Haram. When an attack happens, you find them coming in and clearing everybody. It's practically a scorched tactic, where they kill anyone in sight, pull down any building, burn anything in their way out of anger. It's clear from all that we've been hearing that there are problems with training of the officers, of the men of the Nigerian security forces. There are issues with the equipment. There are issues with the way and manner they treat civilians, not discriminating between them and those that they may be lawfully fighting against. All these issues, we have an opportunity to address these broad issues with what has happened and with the attention of the international media and foreign countries at this time.
See, you've spoken to these girls, and, you said that some of them even come back pregnant, and all that. Now, could you please paint a picture for us, like how exactly, how is life for these girls during adoption? During abduction, how are they being treated, from feeding to shelter? Can you please paint a picture for us based on what they might have told you?
A lot of it is just about a normalcy of life in the camps of Boko Haram. Clearly, what we've been able to tease out of that is that Boko Haram is not just one large group in one particular location. There are different little cells here and there with small groups of people. They're in different locations where they hide out. And so the girls, a lot of the times, just carry out domestic chores for them. Of course, definitely, as we have heard, even in the recent cases from the girls that escaped this recent abduction. Many of them are being made to renounce whatever religion they belong to and accept Islam so that they can lawfully get married according to the Boko Haram ideology. And so all of, when they suffer any kind of ill treatment is in line with that. It's in because some of them refuse to accept that. And so those who do get married, of course, will begin to have sexual relations with their spouses, in quotes. And those who do not continue to be harassed and intimidated to accept the religion of their captors. And so for some of them, I mean, there was just some that simply couldn't speak, simply could not utter a word because of the trauma. And yeah, we're very sensitive to that. So you can imagine what they must have gone through.
Okay. You know, Mausi have just painted a very terrifying picture because, yes, good news that they're not killing the girls off, but life is not any better for them. But there's something she mentioned when she was talking about, it didn't really paint the Nigerian military in a very good light, looking at the indiscriminate way they attack, so attacking both the militants and even the people on ground. Now, recently on the news, we heard about Nigerian military people down there protesting against their commander due to, you know, probably very poor living conditions in that environment. So what does that say? What does that tell you? All the money that is supposed to be going into helping or improving equipment, living conditions, where is the money going to? What is happening with that money?
I mean, that's the next level of the question that Nigeria needs to start asking, not only from the military and the defense ministry, but also from the presidency and also all of them that are connected. You know, it's basically important that there should be value for the money. The monies that are allocated and are meant to have been spent are monies that came out of our taxes and also our commitments to nation building. So for a few set of people to have sat on such an amount of money, which were meant to have actually prevented what we have now, or that would have motivated the military, and I've said this over time, it is not only that you have a security apparatus, it's not only that you have a burgeoning or bogus military personnel, it's also about the motivation that you bring into what you want to engage them on. It's also about the kind of encouragement that they receive. It's also about the kind of equipment that they get to use. And in this situation, all of these are lacking. You can see that there are no forms of motivation with the military personnel. And that is where you see the mutiny that was just being reported. And like Mausi said, you know, it's also very sad that many of our military personnel, both from the top, and that is what you can see them displaying on the streets when they come in contact with either motor bus conductors, drivers, and they act in a very reckless
gross
manner.
display of you know, unprofessionalism and the rest. So I have to hold you off there because we have to go on a break. But please, you would continue talking after the break. But for now, let's go on a break.